So in a previous video I showed how I repainted this bike frame from the ugly pink color that it was to this nice blue color. In this video I'm going to show you how I'm going to reassemble everything back onto that frame. So I'm going to start with working on putting the forks back on here. So the first thing I got to do is take off this tape that I put on there for masking it while I was working on it. And I've got my forks sitting over here. And the forks themselves I masked off as well to keep paint from getting onto the cone surface here. So inside each of these cups, the one at the top and the one at the bottom, there are these little sets of cage bearings which need to go in there. So before I put these ones back in, I'm just going to clean them up using a rag. And after I've got them both looking nice and clean, I'm going to apply some white grease to them, just so that they'll roll nice and smoothly, and just kind of get it around the outside like that. And then you can just use your finger to work it inside so it's nice and greasy, like so. So now that cage can just get dropped inside there. Now you want to do it so that the side where the ball bearings are facing out is going to be facing down, so it's going into that cone there like that. And then I can just take my front forks, which I peeled the tape off of the cone now, and I can just drop those down right in there like that, and you should feel that it should roll pretty easily. And then the other ball bearing cage goes onto the bottom again with the ball bearings, so that the side where they're sticking out faces the cup. So I'm just going to push this up and into there, and then we take the other cone, which should look something like this, and that gets threaded on here. Took me a little bit of work to get the thread started, but now I've got it going. It's going on pretty easily. Alright, so now I've got that threaded all the way on, and as you can see, the forks are able to rotate smoothly. Now to hold those on as well, there's also these other two pieces of hardware that go on. First there's this lock ring, which has this little tab in it that you've got to line up with the slot that's right there. So that goes on, and then this nut goes on afterwards. Like so. So this functions essentially the same way as any other cup cone lock ring style of bearings on your bike, which means that what you have to do is you want to set your cone so that it's tight enough that your bearing surface here is not going to be rocking. There's going to be no play in it, but you also don't want it to be too tight that it's not going to turn easily from side to side like it is right there. So you want to loosen it off enough so that you don't feel any play, but it still rotates really easily. And then once you've got it right, then you just take your wrench on here and you use the nut down here, the lock nut, to lock it in place. So next I'm just removing the tape, which is inside the bottom bracket here on either side. So next I'm going to install this piece, which goes into this hole here at the bottom. Sometimes there's a screw thread which goes in the bottom. This one just has a little tab and just gets snapped in there like so. So next I'm going to install the bottom bracket back onto the bike, and as you can see it needs some cleaning up first, but all that should just come off easily just by rubbing it with a rag. And just a few minutes of rubbing, and now I've got everything looking really nice and clean and shiny. So for reassembling this bottom bracket, I'm going to start with the fixed cup, which goes on the drive side of the bike, or when the bike is the right side up, it's the one that's on the right hand side. Before I put that in there, I'm going to put some grease on the inside of this cup surface so that there'll be grease inside there when I eventually put the bearings in later. So I'm just going to put a nice amount in and around the bottom area of the cup. That should be enough there. And the fixed cup is a left-handed thread, which means that it uses the left-hand rule, which means that if I want it to go in, I point my thumb in the direction I want this thing to go. So inwards, we rotate in the direction that my fingers are pointing. So we want to rotate counterclockwise, which is the opposite of just about every thread that you use in your everyday life. So you have to be really careful when you're getting this started that you don't get it cross-threaded. Just gently turn until it starts to bite the threads correctly. There we go, I think I got it started. And once you get it to the end of where you've got it finger tight and it's all the way in, you can just grab a big adjustable wrench and size it so it will fit on the 2 flat spots. And then you can just snug it up a little bit, and of course being careful not to let the wrench slip so you don't damage your nice new paint job. In order to help keep the wrench from slipping, I'm just going to put my other hand over top like this and then use this hand over here to push down on it and just get it nice and snugged up. Alright, so now working from the other side, which doesn't have a cup in it, we're going to insert the bottom bracket spindle through there. But before we do that, we're going to put on one of the cage set of bearings. But I'm also going to make sure I get these bearings nice and greased before they go through there. So again, I'm going to use my white grease, just to kind of dip it in there, and then use my fingers to get the grease inside of the bearing cages. And as you can see on this spindle, this side here is longer than this side here, and you want the longer side to be on the side where the sprockets are, which is going to be the side over here where we've already put our cup in. And another way of being able to tell that is there's this line here on the inside, and that line represents the drive side of the bike. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place these bearings on here. So since they're going to be facing this way with the ball bearings facing out into the cup, we want to stick them on here with the ball bearings facing in on the end like that, and then we stick it into the hole like so. Then take the other set of cage bearings and get them in the grease as well and get it worked around into the ball bearing cage. And then these ball bearings go in again with the ball bearings facing out because they're going to face the cup on this side, so they go in like that. And then finally we take the adjustable cup and we get some grease inside it, just like we did for the fixed cup on the other side. Then this cup gets inserted into here, and this side is a right hand thread, so it just uses the standard clockwise direction for turning it in. Although, just like on the other side, it's a little bit tricky to be able to get it in so that it's not cross-threaded. So you should be able to thread this on just using your fingers, and then once you've got it near the end, then you want to put on your lock ring, which again just threads on to start with your fingers. And this works, the system here works very much the same as the headset worked, in that you use this section here to set the tightness of the bearing, and then you use this piece here to lock that piece in place. In this case it's the cup that you're locking in place, in the last case it was the cone that you're locking in place, but the concept is very much the same. So what you want to do is you want to get your wrench and hold this thing in place on these 2 flat spots here, and then you get your spanner and you put it on here and you rotate in the opposite direction and you lock it in place. Like so. And then after you got it tightened, you can check it, see if there's any play. And I think I got it so it's not really turning that easily. So I'm going to try again with this a little bit looser. So typically this area here of the frame, which runs up alongside where the chain goes, it ends up getting pretty badly scratched and dented because the chain's running past there, and if you go over a bump or something, or sometimes, you know, just from changing gears, the chain will bounce and it'll come down and it'll come in contact with here, and it usually, you know, takes lots of paint chips away. So on most bikes when you first buy them, there'll be a big sticker which goes along here to help protect that area there. What I'm going to use on mine is just use a piece of inner tube that I've cut in a long strip, and I'm going to wrap that around here so I'll have a nice protective rubber strip around this area of the frame. So I'm just going to fasten it in place using some electrical tape. So I'm just going to tape on the end there like that. I'll just start it like that and wrap the tape around and get it stuck down pretty well. And then I'm going to pull on it and keep it fairly tight as I'm wrapping, Just going to cover up that tape first before I start to move down. Just keep working my way around. And I'm going to stop it here, and I've got more material than I need. So I'm just going to clip it off about there and wrap it around a few more turns, and then get some more of my electrical tape, which I can tape on here and just wrap around to hold it in place. And clip that end off, and I'll put a little bit more on this end to reinforce it as well. Just like so. So that concludes part 1 of this video series. Stay tuned for part 2, where I'll demonstrate how to install the derailleurs, wheels, handlebars, seat, brakes, shifters, and kickstand. Please leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of this video, and thanks for watching.